I wouldn't be surprised that by the time the sun dawns in the Western Hemisphere tomorrow morning, things will have gone from bad to very, very much worse in the Ukraine. For those of you who have not heard, President Vladimir Putin of Russia has decided to move his forces into the southeastern region of Ukraine, where he now says he recognizes two breakaway republics. Now, the situation that led up to all this is something we could probably go on and on about for an hour. But what I want to talk about in this video is the reaction around the world. Americans need to realize what's going to happen. The markets are probably going to careen straight through the floor immediately as soon as they open at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and they will probably have to step in and shut down the markets. It's going to be that bad. Because the EU has said that they're going to react with all due force, and Putin says bring it on, so it is game time. Now, about a month ago, I had counseled people to watch for this date between the 20th and the 22nd because it is the anniversary of the Great Northern War. The Great Northern War was a conflict in which a coalition led by the Tsardom of Russia successfully contested the supremacy of the Swedish Empire in northern, central, and eastern Europe. It began on 22 February 1700. So we are exactly 322 years to the day, to that date. Now there's something else that many don't know. It's also a sign of the second coming of Christ. There is a connection. Matthew 24, 32, and 33. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near, right at the door. I'm sure some are wondering, what does the fig tree have to do with Ukraine? Well, if the U.S. gets involved, or even NATO for that matter gets involved, the closest air base to the Ukraine is in southern Turkey. It's called Incirlik. It's right in this region right here. Incirlik has a very interesting translation. The word Incirlik means fig tree grove in the Turkish language. Incirlik means fig tree grove. There are only a very few places in all of Europe where there are any nuclear weapons stored that we have access to. B-61s, they're about 150. They're about 400 kilotons. They're in Italy, Germany, but right here in Incirlik. And I do believe that this was a prophecy, that this is where it would begin, the fig tree grove. When you see the fig tree budding, you will know the time is short. It was a parable that a lot of people didn't understand, and many have interpreted it in many different ways. But now, looking at current events, I think we can now see what the horsemen were, and now we can see what Jesus was speaking of. This is not going to end well. This is not going to end with any type of a negotiation. This Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission President, has already come out and stated the recognition of the two separatist territories in Ukraine is a blatant violation of international law, the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and the Minsk agreements. The EU and its partners will react with unity, firmness, and with determination in solidarity with Ukraine. So we've seen a lot, the world, in the last 2 to 3 years, even in the last 20 years, 25 years, but I think we know we are now coming right here to the end, and there's not very much longer. If they do launch, keep your eyes on the markets and watch what happens. And make sure at this point you have those closest to you in a situation where if you have to come together for a time, that can be made to happen. Because it could start to tumble out of control, and the person that we have sitting in Washington, D.C. right now, wholly unequipped, completely impotent to deal with something like this. It's beyond him. It's beyond his vice president. It's really beyond Washington, D.C. in general at this point to deal with. These events are going to play out, and for the first time in a long time, the United States, such as it is going to sit on the sidelines and just have to watch, just have to react, because all of the political capital is spent. Nobody cares about the opinions of these people in Washington, D.C. anymore. So we're on our own, basically. There will be no help. And I know that sounds very doom and gloom, but I have been counseling for a long time. The first thing I counseled was to vote with your money since 2020. Keep your money in places where you know it supports values that you agree with. I begged people for about 2 months to the point where people were ready to stop listening to my channel to get to Florida. Well, the prices in Florida have now priced out the vast majority of folks. Things are insanely expensive here. If they're available at all. Inflation is out of control. And all this is going to eventually get hung on the current president. History is going to remember this like it remembered Jimmy Carter. And all we can hope for is perhaps a better tomorrow, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. And this is going to set off a series of events. So, once again, watch the airbase at Incirlik in Turkey. If things heat up and the EU moves in forces, whoever's forces, whether there's US or German or whoever else is involved, if they start running air campaigns out of the Fig Tree Grove, to me, that's all the confirmation I need. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near, right at the door. God bless. Pray for each other. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.